Welcome to another edition of All Octaves with me, Val Kleinhans. I have the wonderful Rainey Terrell here. She is a singer, songwriter, keyboardist in an alternative rock group called the Alibis. Rainey, welcome. We're going to talk all
Thank
music today.
you. Thank you. I love talking all the music, so that's my bread and butter.
Well, I know the thing that you're most excited about right now is the fact that the Alibis just put out Mother. It's obvious to
Yes.
me that this song comes from a very emotional place. Tell me about it.
Yes. Yeah, okay. So this song actually I started God, it was like 4 years ago I started. And it's kind of it's a funny story because I when I initially wrote the song, I barely like I wasn't as good of a songwriter. Well, not to say that I'm a great songwriter, but I felt like I've grown as a songwriter, if that makes sense. I was good, but I feel like I've grown a lot up to this point. But anyway, when I initially started it, I didn't feel like it was a good enough song. And I was like, oh, I hate this. I couldn't figure out like what it was. I thought it maybe was too high of a key. So I wasn't even going to pursue the song. And initially, yes, when I wrote it, it comes from a place where, like a little background is, yeah, when I was 17, I was sent away to a lockdown facility in Utah. Um, I was definitely a wild child. I definitely was not innocent. But I think everyone when they're 17, they kind of go through different phases of their life where you're kind of experimenting who you are, finding out like who you what you're about and things like that. I was always singing as a child. I was always working on my craft, even as a child. I loved singing. I loved playing piano. And I think my mom really recognized that when I was a kid. And she was very, very protective of me because she knew that that was my dream. And I think I was always pretty easy up until, I guess it was my teens. Yeah. And not that I just say I was difficult, but I definitely, I'm an Aquarius. I'm kind of like a very, if some people that follow astrology, I don't know. I'm very hard headed and I like to kind of like do things my way. And not to say, I can't say that I deserve to go there either, in my personal opinion, but from my mom's perspective, she was so worried about me, that she felt that that was the only way to sort of get my behavior back on track. And
Mm.
I totally don't agree with that. I deeply love my mom, though. She did have the utmost good intentions. She just didn't really know where she was sending me and sort of the background of what went on there. um
Yeah.
I don't know if you know, but Paris Hilton also went to a place.
I
Yeah.
was just gonna say that, and I think it was also
Yes.
in Utah too. So
Yes.
Paris has kind of opened our eyes as to how intense these
Yes.
places really are. And
Hmm.
her version of the story was that even her parents, I don't think realized how intensive
Right.
it really
No.
was.
No, and see, my mom had no clue. She didn't know because the thing is they take a lot of they're very smart. I would say like I didn't understand it as a child because I was 17, but now when I look back and I've joined like a group where I kind of like listen to other people's stories and stuff.
Mm.
Just to kind of remember some things, it's for me, it's just sort of a part of the healing process. Well, I'll get into that in one second. But yeah, so they took very precautionary measures to keep you in the program.
Mm.
That your parents are never allowed to see you until 6 months. You're not allowed to talk on the phone with them by yourself at all. It always has to be in front of a counselor. So, but the counselors, get this, the counselors are not accredited. They don't have to be real counselors that go to school for any kind of therapy or anything like that. They just, the state of Utah's program just has to be licensed as a program that, I don't know, they jump through some hoops, but the people working there do not have to. So,
That's the
yeah, does that make
loophole.
sense?
Okay.
Yes, yes,
That's why
right?
these places are in that location. Well, so what was the
Yes,
conversation like? Or maybe you didn't have this
yeah,
conversation yet. I don't know. You can tell me. When you
sure.
you go back home and you're
Mhm.
telling your mom, you're telling your family what really went on. What was that
Right.
conversation like?
Well, first, I mean, I started telling my mom in a lot of letters because the only way that you can actually first, even be in contact with your parents, other than you have a supervised phone call, so you cannot say anything. Um,
Mhm.
I would write it in letters, but they read them, and then you're punished. So I learned that later. At first, because I started telling her, "Oh my God, they do all these terrible things here. Like, please get me out of here. You don't understand." And they actually inform your parents that your kids are going to say that. So, like, so it's very smart the way they've done it, and it's also to rake in the big bucks because it's a lot of money to send your kids somewhere like that. It's not cheap. Um, and so, but I mean, the conversation once I got home, to be honest, initially when I got home, I had a lot of like PTSD, like not where I was like, like freaking out and I couldn't live my daily life. But initially in the beginning, it was such a shock coming from such a controlled, crazy environment where I can't even tell you like the level of deep, deep, deep depression that I was in being there because, I went from singing, I sang at the Dodger Stadium as a kid. I did singing competitions and won. I did all these amazing rap things as a young artist, trying to figure out who I am. And I went from that to being totally taken out of my bed in the middle of the night by two escorts and thrown into this facility for it was 10 months. So yeah, I mean the conversation initially, like my mom, she had a really hard time wanting to believe it at first because I mean, God, who would want to know that? Because then they would feel awful about what
Yeah,
happened,
yeah.
But she later totally understood and has been super supportive. And it's just, it was a very emotional conversation. And that's kind of been a conversation over the years of continuing to discuss it because I think initially when I got home, I wanted to tell her these things, but um, I was kind of afraid. I don't know how to explain it. Of even like the world around me to explain. I don't know. I just couldn't um gather myself and things were weird for at least a year or two. I actually was thrown right into going to college in New York um for theater at that time and I couldn't finish. I couldn't even go. I once I got to New York and that was like I went there like 3 months later after I got out of this crazy program. I had to drop
Wow.
out of school out of college because I couldn't it was just too intense and I didn't realize like how much I went through until after kind of like being home for a while and kind of processing my stuff and kind of looking up like what other people's experiences were there. That's kind of like how I really came to like a more of okay, like yeah, that was really intense. I definitely went through I would say a very deep level of like I don't know, a very bad program that's it I don't know how to say it. It's a lot of I personally think a lot of techniques of mind control. Personally, I looked
Wow.
into it. It's really crazy. Um, so because they make you do, I mean, it's I could go on and on, but they make you do like seminars in order to get past levels, and it's kind of like what's that one terrible show that's like oh Handmaiden's Tale. Well, they kind of like not like,
What?
but there are
Yeah.
some techniques like that they use, that were like they would go after you and have your like you would think personal group therapy would be all of us discussing our feelings. They would make the other girls attack you within the group therapy and yeah and just break you down completely and it just a lot of things I saw were very like which are similar in sort of like a break you down, build you up kind of approach, but it was very negative, So, um,
Wow.
yeah, it was very intense. And so I wrote that single initially because I really wanted to talk about it just to get it out. And I was so afraid, I was so afraid. I was so scared. And, you know, but it was such a freeing feeling, I think, after my guitarist actually, we were going through some music that I had and songs that I had written, and we were kind of looking to see if any other material I'd written that we liked or anything like that. And I played him that, and it was by no means sounded like what it did. So like, but
Okay.
it was a skeleton. I mean, I wrote all the lyrics and everything already, and all the like I wrote piano parts and some strings, but just the production wasn't as good and it wasn't where I wanted it to be at all. But and he was like, "Oh, we got to do that one." And I was like, I looked at him and I'm like biting my teeth because like I or biting my nails and I'm so scared. I'm like, "Really? Oh, you really think that one's good?" And he's like, "Oh, it's so good." And I was like, I don't know, because like I'm really scared about the content of it, and also I didn't want it to come out to where I was pointing a finger at my mom, because
Mm.
it, the thing is like my mom is such a close confidant to me. She's my best friend. She's a great person. Yeah, I did feel really frustrated at the situation, and I was pissed at her. I mean, she knows. I felt a level of betrayal. When I was a kid. But as I've gotten older, I recognize both perspectives and I see
Mhm.
why she felt that she needed to do it and I see why I felt. So
Yeah.
I understand it wasn't out a sense of being cruel, but yeah, so he was like my guitarist was like we got to do this and I was like okay, but then I knew I would have to really explain it. And to be honest, it was like a blessing because I really did want to do it. I just
Mhm.
hadn't mustered the courage to like put it out yet.
It's hard. It's hard. I mean, that's
Yeah,
such a
yeah,
vulnerable that was
it
a
is.
vulnerable moment in your life, and it can't be easy to
Yeah,
discuss, much less write a whole entire song about it where anybody in the world that it can have access to it. What has the
right.
reception been like since? Have you found that this is healing for other people in similar positions? What's
Oh
the
yeah,
reception
I
been?
mean, yeah, no, I've had so many people reach out to me. I can't even tell you. Like, I have had so many people personally message me and have written all over our Instagram and our Facebook page and my personal one. Like, I've had so many people message me and they're like, "Thank you so much for saying this." Like, I was frightened, but the fact that people, like so many people, I'm not even like joking. I actually posted some of their comments and stories, and I asked if I could, of course, just
Yeah.
because it was so it was so impacting that they said that to me that it made me feel even more confident about like anything else I may be insecure about writing about. But yeah, so no, but the reception has been absolutely phenomenal. I feel so video. They love this song and they love that like I was willing to be so vulnerable and open. And and I will say, as an artist, I really feel like it's the artist's duty to be vulnerable and open. I feel like it's extremely beneficial for anyone to um I don't know, when my favorite artists that I listened to growing up, when I would hear songs that were really connecting to something of
Mhm.
myself, like those were the life-changing moments. And so I do really value that. And I think that that's essential to be a great band, great artist. Um, and I'm just glad that the opportunity arose and I could help other people and that I was pushed to do it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
That's a sign of a great songwriter. That's a sign of someone that's connecting with their community. That's someone that's
thank
gonna build
you.
their community, in my opinion.
Thank you. Thank
Like,
you.
and
No, thank you so much.
really, the video, I did see the video as well. It's a damn mini movie. It's what it is.
It
Like
is. It is.
really,
Yeah.
it is. And those are my favorite kinds of videos. But I gotta ask, like, was it? There's some intense scenes in there too to reflect the
Yeah.
content of the song. There's a purpose
Yes.
behind it, but
Yes.
was it hard to go back there? Was it hard to sort of emulate that again?
Yeah, it really was. It was very emotional. Actually, before we even shot the video, me, my guitarist Chris, and my guitarist Arthur, we all drove up to Utah because we initially actually really wanted to shoot this video at the place. And
Okay.
I was seeing in some of the group messages from people that it's actually abandoned. And so I was like, oh my
Ah,
God. Well, yeah, I was like, how impactful would that be? Plus, it would be a lot cheaper than anything else, also. But I did think that it would be very hard for me emotionally, and I wanted to go there before to like kind of see how I reacted and kind of see like what the deal was also with the place. But actually was not completely abandoned. They had turned it partly into a motel, and the other half
Oh.
had not been, yeah, and the other half had not been completely remodeled yet, because I guess they're going to turn the rest of it into that. But we did were able to kind of scout about, and I did get some footage of it, but we did get later kicked off the property. So yes, well, the guy who turned it into a motel, I guess a lot of people who have gone through that program go back to sort of like face their fears of it as well, and have asked
Oh.
to film documentaries there and other things. And he knew, he could tell, because we had our phones out, we were kind of filming. I was, and he was like, no, we told him, we were like, look, I went through there. I'm just trying to kind of heal being here. I wanted to see like what was going on here. Um, and he absolutely said, no way. And he just made us leave the property immediately. He did not care. And he's afraid that,
Wow.
like, yeah, I was really upset initially, because it was like, I couldn't even believe I was there,
Yeah.
it was weird, because like, it's eerie and weird. And I'm trying to remember where the seminars took place, and like where I have footage that I'm going to post on our Instagram throughout next week of my actual room. I didn't get to see the inside of it, but I have the door. I got to film some stuff before he actually kicked us off. So um, I mean, yeah. So I'm excited. That was good for me. But unfortunately, we didn't get to film there. However, yeah, the other place that we got to film at, and they were amazing, ideal sets. But yeah, just being back in that kind of filming and that place, and like kind of that feeling of remembering all those things, it was very emotional. I did get there early that day to kind of like, really focus on just, kind of letting go and feeling comfortable, and really trying to put myself there, so that I could really bring some truth to, the video, because it is filmed like a mini movie. It is.
Yeah.
So it was very emotional, but after a while, I definitely was able to get into it. And there were a lot of fun moments and things like that we were just kind of goofing off and stuff. So it wasn't as intense as I, had, I guess, thought in my head it would be after, we were actually there for, I don't know, I think like 15 hours. So,
Wow.
um, yeah, it was an all night, no, 12 hours. It was from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. So an overnight shoot. So,
Okay.
very, very long hours, all throughout the night. But, no, I'm so happy with it. I was fine with it after a while, but, yeah, I'm really grateful that I got to tell that story and be able to kind of like, show a very sensitive part of myself. I think that that's essential. So yeah,
Yeah.
it went
Mu
good. Yeah,
Good. Music really can be healing.
it
Before
can.
right, before the Alibis, before Mother, I don't know how many people even know this, but you've always sung and played keyboards. So,
Yes. Yeah.
which came first in your musical journey, singing?
Yeah. Singing. Yeah. Singing. I was, I always wanted to sing as a little girl. And, my mom had me in dance. She had me I was in gymnastics. I was in everything under the sun but singing, and no one in my family sings. So this is kind of a funny story. I begged my mom. I was like, please get me singing lessons. She's like, why do she want singing lessons? Like, no one in our family sings. I haven't really heard her sing, and she's not, you can
Mhm.
kind of scope, I think, when a kid has like some talent or whatever when you're young.
Yeah.
Um, and but she was like, okay, if there was a local competition actually, and it was like a super, like, I don't know, in our city, and she was like, if you win this local singing competition, I'll get you voice lessons. Well,
Okay.
well,
Challenge thrown.
yes, and I was like, okay, well, here we go. So I we went to the competition, and I won first place. And
Okay.
yes, yes. And so she had to get me singing lessons. And we actually ended up using one of the teachers that another girl in a different age category won, that I thought was really good. So my mom actually sought out the teacher that was there, and that became my teacher for over 20 years. So Yeah, that's the story of singing. I always started singing first. I played piano later, and yeah, I don't know.
It starts there. Well, I've seen some sort of operatic reels from you on Instagram too. So was
Yeah,
opera was opera part of that initial those
yeah.
initial lessons, or was that something that came later?
Um, opera. So opera was a part of the initial lessons. That teacher that was actually at the competitions, she taught opera, but all
Mhm.
her singers were amazing singers, you know. And my mom was like, "Oh, well, let's use her," and I was all about it. So, but my teacher was very strict. She did not want any pop music. She's like, she was an amazing. Oh yeah, she was an amazing opera singer, and she also was okay with musical theater, but just never any pop rock, anything like that. That's just grotesque, you know. um yeah, so I learned very classical styles, and then obviously I went on to, like, secretly, when when I didn't have lessons, I would always be learning pop stuff and rock stuff, and
Mhm.
just really obviously expanded my repertoire. And I was like, oh my god, like, I love this,
Yeah.
um yeah, so I mean, I do definitely still sing opera, at home, or actually, like, at our studio, I'll practice because it does keep the vocals nice and bright and open. And I love opera so much, but yeah, I knew I was not going to be an opera singer, so yeah,
Well,
that's
so
not my thing. Yeah.
well, tell me about the moment that you knew you were going to do rock, alternative rock, or you crossed paths with the Alibis, or what is the story, the initial story there?
Sure, sure. Yeah, okay, so, well, I mean, I started, I think it was I I think it was early, like, my 17. Well, it was after that I got out of that program. I think it was like 19
Mhm.
or 20. I had already been writing a lot of lyrics and poetry, and um, I was learning how to craft, like, little things on the piano with my voice, but I was
Mm.
still learning to even do that, because I was in that program for a minute, and I took me a minute to kind of get back in the groove of life. But yeah, and I found a couple rock bands that I was in for a while. Um and I did some cool stuff with those, but then I just really wanted, I didn't have full blown, like, they wouldn't let me fully songwrite. I wrote mainly melodies and things. I wrote all the melodies, obviously, but I wanted to craft all the songs, and I wanted to become really good at programming music. That was my goal, and I wanted to be, like, excellent at it, so I left those bands, and I really turned inward and focused on my craft. And I was like, all right, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to teach myself how to program this music, and I'm going to watch whatever I need to watch to get good, because it just didn't fulfill me just writing melodies. Like, I wanted
Yeah.
to craft the whole song, and I knew I could do it if I just, I really buckled down and did it. So I did that for I would say, like, a handful of years, really focusing on that, because that took a while. And then I started pumping out those the solo stuff, and that's when I started really getting in my groove of, like, okay, I can write this. I've always written, but I started feeling like, okay, these are, like, good songs. Like, I believe in these
Mhm.
songs. These are good songs. I could be a really good songwriter if I focused, So I was like, but I love my solo stuff. I really do. But I really, obviously, I don't play guitar. I'd love to at some point in my life. I just have zero time right now. But I've always been a rock chick, and I love rock music. I love Muse. I love, like, big open, like, orchestral, theatrical kind of
Mm.
sounds, because I come from a theater background, and so I was like, these songs are rad, but I thrive in bands. I just love being in a band, and that kind of team effort. And just you get so many ideas from other people, and that's in your band. And I have such talented people in my band. I'm so lucky that, I was like, I'd love to, like, throw ideas at each other and whatnot. So after I crafted those, I was like, I started doing that because I knew I wanted a band, but I needed, obviously, songs initially anyway.
Mhm.
So, and then I was like, all right, it's time to get a guitar player. And I actually put an ad on Vamper, or I was, yeah, something on our little thing. I think you can create a profile and then it says like you're looking for whatever. And Chris was the first one that actually responded to my to my um to my little ad. And I had a bunch of other guitar players that I was talking to as well. And I sent them those songs and materials, and I just kind of wanted to see like what they would be able to write to it, you know?
Mhm.
And Chris was really, he was the best one, hands down. All the other guitar players, they took over the entire song. They didn't know how, you know, how to like let the song breathe sort of, and sort of work with the song, as opposed to just, hey, I'm
Right.
gonna take over the song. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
well, you hear it in production. Like, you can just
yeah,
tell with certain
right.
bands, you're like, "Oh, I know who's the leader there." Air
Yeah,
quotes.
right. Yeah, right, yeah. And you know, in rock music, obviously guitar is like the forefront of it, other than singing, you know, but it was important to me to like have someone who also has an ear and that can recognize like if they're too much or not enough. And you know, and the same with me, you know, I as a singer, like I always want to be over here, and you know, but
Yeah.
I have to learn also to reel myself back. So and Chris was the only one that wrote, he wrote amazing to what I had, and he also kind of, he learned to like flow with the music as opposed to taking over, and I love that about him. So we started that journey, and we had been writing, we wrote now, I don't know, like 5 or 6 songs, and then we started looking for the rest of the band members, you know. And each one was very serendipitous, you know. My drummer, he I knew he had just left another previous band, and he was amazing, and he heard the songs that we had, and he was like, oh my god, yes, you know. So he's so talented. And then Arthur, our second guitar player, just phenomenal, so talented. And that came actually from just a friend and a recommendation, and he, like, we got really lucky with him. He's just a virtuoso. So and we got so lucky. So that's, it kind of started like that. Dark Side I wrote just barely, like moving out of my apartment out of Orange County and moving to LA. And I was like moving all my stuff, and we were trying to finish it, and you know, and
Chaos.
yeah. Oh, I gotta say, like, it is not stop chaos 24/7 over here. It is, there's never a dull moment. um I just moved again, and it's been crazy. So
Oh my
yeah,
god.
we
I
moved.
couldn't tell because your cat is so content. She's just like,
Oh,
she was
I
here.
know. Yeah, no, me, yeah, I know. My both of my guitarists and me, we all live together. We got a 3 bedroom, so we're all living now together. So it's exciting because
Cool.
gonna
Are
be
you doing
writing a
this in
lot more.
LA?
Yeah, yeah. Uh-huh.
Oh, okay. Well, so
Yeah.
is it hard to do that in what I mean, I'm in Minnesota, and in my head,
Yeah.
LA seems really saturated with like everybody trying to do the music thing. Maybe that's not true.
Yeah.
Is it,
Yeah.
are you finding it hard to break through in a market like that, or
No,
not at all?
I feel like, you know, I think it depends on the band. You know, I feel like our band has something very special to offer. I think that we're good at what we do. I think our sound is unique. I don't feel like it sounds too much like one specific band, and I think we have something, you know, sort of unique to offer. So I don't feel that at all. There is a ton of people trying to do it, but on the contrary, I feel like it's more exciting for me to be around other people and artists that are like trying to do the same
Mm,
thing, because like I feel like thrilled and like alive being around other people that are doing the same thing. And I've met a lot of friends that, you know, are just as hungry and working on other things. And you know, I love LA for that, you know. So yeah, I definitely don't see it as that. Some people, you know, I think it's all mental also, because like if you go into it and you're like, oh god, this is so hard, and believe me, there are days that are really hard.
yeah.
But you know, I just feel really lucky because I met the best band members, and we, you know, everything just keeps working out, and we just have such positive feedback. I'm excited about it. So yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. And what's next for you, the band? What can we look
Yeah.
forward to?
Yeah. So okay, well, we just released Mother. We're gonna be releasing another single shortly after in November-ish. It's gonna be most likely like probably an acoustic, unique version of Dark Side.
Ooh,
And
okay.
then we have some really awesome new singles that we're going to start coming out in January after the new year. So we're going to be playing Bar Sinister in October 21st. And then we haven't announced this yet, but we're actually going to be playing the Troubadour for that release on the 24th of
Iconic.
November. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So we're really excited. And you know, those releases might slightly change, like we might change that, but that's kind of the plan as of right now. But the shows are not changing, so those are there.
Cool.
So
Is all of this gearing up maybe toward an album next year? Fingers
oh
crossed.
yeah, totally, for sure,
Yes.
absolutely. That is
Yes.
100% happening. So we are working on that, and that's another really cool thing of why we all moved in together, is because we're just going to be going, you know, balls to the wall as far as getting an album together. So
Yeah. Hunker down during the
it's
winter months and get it done. That's what we do in Minnesota.
exactly.
Like when winter hits here, that is our writing time and recording
Oh
time.
yeah.
That's it.
Oh, I bet. Is Minnesota like super? I've never actually been there. Is it? It's freezing, right? I mean,
It can
it's got
be.
to be. Okay.
Yeah, it can be. I
Okay.
mean, we can have 20 below for a solid month and a half, January into February, consistently. Like
Oh
it
my
can.
god. Oh my god. How are you
So
doing it?
we're layered up and boiler heat. Honestly,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah. Yeah.
and staying indoors. Like it's, but we get it done. But a lot of bands that I know locally, that's what they do. They use those
Yeah.
months as their writing and recording time, and that's it.
Yeah.
By April, May, we're ready to head out again
Yeah.
and do their
Yeah.
thing.
That's so smart. I mean, that's totally what I would do. And that's basically what we're doing, even though we're not there. I mean, we're really hunkering down kind of during the holidays. We've got three more singles coming after the new year. And then we definitely, you know, we're going to be writing. So that's it. And, you know, want to tour and stuff, hopefully by next summer. So yeah, we're really excited, you know. It's an exciting time for us. And, you know, as a new band, just such a lot of positive things happening that you know, we're grateful. So yeah.
I can't wait. I can't wait to hear it all.
Yeah.
Rainey, thank you so
Oh,
much for hanging
thank
out with me.
you.
Thank you for
Yes,
this.
thank you so much, and thank you for inviting me, and I appreciate it. You were awesome.